Buddy, and huge shout out to Gemma, Bipolar Mom, in the live chat right now for organizing this interview with Rachel. And Rachel's story is a harrowing one that involves graphic content, folks, so viewer discretion advised. And for legal reasons, Rachel, I have to make sure, because of the nature of what happened to you and your age at the time, that you give us permission to publish this story and you waive your anonymity.
I do.
All right, thank you. So, you know, you come to us through Gemma, who's a fantastic person doing a lot of campaigning. And she sent me some articles, and you've been through a lot in your life, huge ups and downs. But the dark stuff really started in your childhood. But before we get to that, then, you know, what are your earliest memories?
Oh, gosh. Earliest memories of, oh my God. See, now look at that. Lovely live when the phone decides to have its own way. My earliest memories, oh my gosh. I had good memories when I was a little kid, you know, I did. Music was always a big thing in our household, you know, lots of dancing, lots of singing. I love to sing and do all of that, perform for the family chihuahua, play with my friends, you know, just normal childhood. And then, you know, things started to change. And at the age of 5, I found out that the man that I thought was my father was not my father. This lady had stopped me in the street to say that my parents weren't my parents. So then, you know, I had to go in and ask my mom if she was my mom and my dad was my dad. And it turns out that my dad wasn't my dad. And that I had a dad that lived in a faraway country at that point when I was, you know, everything was far away when you're a 5-year-old, you know. So yeah, that kind of started the ball rolling as far as life's ups and downs at the age of 5. I found out that my dad was an American musician, a Black American musician. And then, yeah, it just started from there. I'm the only Black kid in the family. All my siblings are white. So that kind of answered a few questions for me straight off the bat. And then, you know, not looking like anyone, you know, things like that, just, you know, just stuff that kind of clicked, the penny dropped. And then just, you know, went through life, and my stepdad left the house and left us all behind. And then the really dark times started to happen. So yeah, it was not good after that. So yeah. The laughter and the laughter and the childhood innocence went away quite quickly.
Yeah, when my mum found out she was adopted, she was a teenager, it turned her world upside down, and she went on a quest to find her parents, and it's caused a lifelong anxiety and depression. So I understand how that must have affected you. It must have been traumatic.
Yeah.
And whereabouts in the UK were you raised?
Birmingham. I was born and raised in Birmingham, raised on Chelmsley Wood, one of the nicer council estates over there. So yeah, I grew up on the Wood, right up until I was 22, and I came to America.
So what were you like at school?
Oh, I was a pain in the ass at school. I was an absolute. Well, I was never in trouble. I always had a good time. I used to sing for my teachers. Me and my friends used to run around, you know, typical wagging it, you know, skipping class, things like that, just goofiness. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't necessarily one of the popular girls, but everyone knew me. I knew everyone. And it was okay. Life was good. You know, I was still trying to figure out who I was. So, you know, just as far as being a young Black girl, growing up in an all white household, you know, that comes with its challenges. So all my Jamaican girlfriends, all my friend Joy, Fiona, Evelyn, all those girls, they'd sit and braid my hair and give me Black girl lessons, which was hilarious. So they gave me all the pointers, and but yeah, you know, I just hung out with all my friends, and you know, just got on with life. Really, quite troubled, quite sad on the inside, Suffered with depression quite a lot, because, you know, obviously I'd gone through such a traumatic experience when I was 10. So I never got, well, you're not supposed to get over it, but I could never get past it. It was always a constant in my thoughts and in my daily life. So yeah, it was a bit of a struggle, but we made the most of it. I made the most of it.
So, you know, before 10 then, you probably had a certain kind of spirit, and then whatever happened made that spirit change. I don't want to relive your trauma, but are you okay to describe what you can about what happened?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. I mean, my stepdad left, and so he left us behind. But my mum had 2 kids with him, and then I have an older brother. Then there's myself and 2 sisters, and then a million years later, another brother came along. But at that point in time, my stepdad left, and left us all behind. And you know, my mum started dating, brought this guy into the house, and I mean, I can just see his face right now. I remember he had the biggest freaking Adam's apple in his neck. Oh my God. Anyway, so I digress. But anyway, yeah, he one night, you know, I was just flat out fast asleep, and the next minute I know my blood ran cold. I knew something was wrong. I knew something was going on. Absolutely petrified, didn't know what to do. So of course, you know, you're paralyzed with fear, which is exactly what was going on with me. But I knew it was him, and I knew what he was doing was wrong. And then he left the room, and next thing I hear my mother coming up the stairs, and I went and told her immediately, and then just absolute pandemonium descended on the household. So yeah, it was very, very traumatic. I'm shaking as I'm thinking about it now, actually. But you know, some months later, I didn't get any help. You know, went to the doctor the next day, all the police stuff and all of that. Didn't get any aftercare. And a couple of months later, I came home from school, and the man was back in the house, living back in the house.
How did that feel to you? It must have been like a kick in the guts.
It was probably the most extreme experience of betrayal that I've ever felt in my life. You're looking at your parent, because obviously my bio dad, he's American. He was all the way over here. He had no idea. You know, you're looking at your parent, who, you know, they're supposed to be the ones that protect you and everything, and they're all sitting there, you know, having a kumbaya moment on the couch, and there I am, like, what the hell's going on, you know? So yeah, it was a massive betrayal that I've never ever gotten over, ever.
I totally understand. That's horrific. So
yeah.
did she know everything that had happened?
Yeah, the guy went to jail. I told my mom immediately. He went to, like, and I mean immediately, he went to jail, and yeah, he got out of jail and came straight back into our house.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
How long was he in jail for?
You know, I was trying to figure that out the other night, actually. It could not have been too long, because this happened in 1979. And I was trying to kind of piece the timeline together, but I don't remember if there was a Christmas in between. I'm not sure, you know, so it was either late 78 and there was a Christmas, or it was early 79. But I know by March he was back in our house. So it did not do any amount of time at all, you know. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine coming home from school one day and the molester sitting on your couch? It's the scariest thing ever. Horrible feeling.
Had you had any discussions about this man with your mother while he was in jail?
No, it was all brushed under the rug, as we do. And life, you know, she was just trying to get life going again, you know. Life goes on, I should say. And so no, there were no discussions, no therapy, no social services, nothing at all, nothing, not one thing. No, it was just awful, scary. I was a prisoner. I felt like a prisoner in my own home, couldn't move.
So there was no one to turn to, because in this day and age, don't they, like, you're not allowed to go around your victim, are you, if you've done something like that? But I guess back then it was a lot different.
Back then it was completely different. No, you know, like I said, no one came to look for me. No one, you know, I mean, again, I was 10, so, you know, I'm sure there were things going on behind the scenes, but no one came to see if I was okay. Nothing at all. So no, and nothing from my mother. We never spoke about it. No, not a word.
Did he try to do these things again?
Not to me, no. We had a lock put on our bedroom door, which is awful. You got to lock yourself in your bedroom, you know. But no, and then he left. He didn't stay too long, maybe a year, you know, and then he left again. He was gone for good, I should say. So I don't know. You know, I imagine he did go on to do it again. You know, but I saw him one time and I chased him. I saw him at the shopping center and I chased him around the shopping center, screaming at him. And he ran and jumped on the first bus he could get to. But no, I'm pretty sure he's done it again. He did it probably before me and for sure after me. There's no question about it. I'm sure of it.
So as a 10-year-old then, how are you adapting after this has happened?
You know, it's the strangest thing because I had a lot going on, you know. I mean, I'm 5 and I find out I'm Black. So it's like, holy shit, am I allowed to swear? Holy shit, you know, like, what the hell? So that was a whole thing. Like, who's my dad? Who's this? What's my identity? Who am I? Who do I look like? Who's this? You know what I mean? At that point, I'd been speaking to my American dad over the phone with this squeaky, weird voice and with this accent. So that was a lot to process, like, who am I? And then this, you know, this happens to me. So I had a lot going on at the age of 10. And I just started acting out, you know, I mean, not too bad, but I'd always be, you know, nicking my mom's money or nicking something from the shops, you know, stuff like that, you know, nothing too major. But I was depressed a lot. I was really depressed a lot. I'd come home from school and just, you know, go hide in the living room or whatever. And I was really, I was a depressed kid. I tried to kill myself a couple of times, took a bottle of Valium, you know, and my mom, you know, did the whole salt water drink. And I think she was more mad that I took the Valium versus me trying to kill myself, you know. So I don't know, but I had no relationship, so to speak, with my mom. It was always, we just didn't have one. I lost my mom, you know, and I said, I wrote a piece and I lost my mom because, you know, she made a choice and, you know, I mean, I'm not necessarily on here to roast my mother, you know, because I don't have any contact with them, but, you know, the facts are the facts. I lost my mom at the age of 10. She chose this man over her child, you know what I mean? And that was just absolutely awful. So, you know, knowing that and looking at my mom, and trying to grow up like I was always so mad with her, you know, I didn't have any respect. I was just like, you know, I just I don't know, I was just a lost kid, you know, but always tried to smile and laugh my way through it, but deep down I was lost for sure.
So I imagine as you become a teenager then that affected your exams, your ability to study, and perhaps your dating as well with boys. It affected that.
Yeah, you know, I mean, and I was good in school. I was okay. I wasn't in all the top grades, but I was good. I'm you know, I wasn't I'm not thick, you know, but and then dating, of course, I ran into the most disastrous pair of arms that I could have picked, you know, looking for love in all the wrong places, you know, and dated this rotten guy. Oh my God, he was rotten. My first ever boyfriend, he was just you know, the worst kid on the block. You know, you don't want him knocking on your door looking to take your daughter out. That's not the one you want coming over, you know. But and he ended up being, you know, very abusive and stabbed me in the face and beat me up all the time, and just a horrible guy. And then I met another guy after that, and I had my baby. I got pregnant when I was 16, so you know, it never stopped. You know what I mean? It was just going and going and going, one thing after another. So yeah, I was pregnant at 16, and I had my daughter when I was barely 17.
How did you cope having a child so young, and where were you living at that point?
I was living in my mom's house, but then, you know, I got kicked out, had to go get a flat, you know. You know what though, Shaun, I just rolled with the punches, you know what I mean? It was just another thing in my life. I'd already been through, you know, the worst of what I felt like that life could hand me. I'd already got through it. You know, having a kid, everyone was having one. I'm like, all right, well, you know, now I'm pregnant. You know, I was easy prey, you know what I mean? I was easy prey. I didn't know any better, very ignorant. And I just couldn't wait to get to Mother Care so I could get the big bag from Mother Care with like all the items in it and show off. And it was a rite of passage, you know, we're all having these kids, you know, we're 16 and pregnant. I mean, it's just what it was. That's the life of the council. Well, not just a council estate, but everything, you know. And that's what I did. I had my kid. I never saw the guy ever again, but I'll get to him in a minute. But yeah, you know. So I just had my kid, and I became a single mom at the age of 17, and I had my council flat, and yeah, I was a teenage mom.
You said you'll get to him in a minute. What else did you want to say about him?
Oh, he's an absolute dirty dog. If he's watching, hey, nah, you know what? He disappeared. I never saw him again. And then years and years and years later, we reconnected just because my daughter, you know, she was getting older, and I was already over here by then, but I'd gone home for a visit, and reached out to his mother, and so he and I reconnected, and he was quite wealthy. And then at the end of all of, you know, he wanted to have my daughter go and stay with him. He was married with a kid. So I thought, okay, this is fine. You know, let him see his daughter. That's fine, you know. And turns out that he was going to jail. He called me to say he was going to jail because he embezzled £93 million from the British government.
What?
Yeah, that would be a 93 million. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so he was importing, exporting software, I believe, and got busted. Him and a couple of other guys. So yeah.
So what was your life like then until you emigrated?
You know, look, I was on the social. You know, family allowance, Social Security every Monday, down the post office, writing in the back of the book, cashing my check, you know, doing all of that, and just trying to survive, really. You know, I mean, I was in that whirlwind of like whirlpools circling the drain of teenage motherhood, living on the council estate. You know, it just was what it was, you know, broke, absolutely dead skinned all the time, always robbing my 50 pence meter. That poor meter took a beating every month. It took a beating, but you know, I had the hammer. You know, there was a hammer right next to it. You'd rattle the box, and if it didn't rattle, you knew it was full. You know, and I'd crack the you know, the padlock, and that'd be it. I'd be running down the road with a black box with 50 pence pieces falling off the top. But you know, you did what you had to do, you know, to survive, you know. But and then I met my dad. I came to America for the very first time in 1979, right after all that happened in the house. I got a trip to Disneyland, you know, so probably to keep me quiet and try to cheer me up. So I came to meet my dad for the very first time in person. And then as a result of that, I met my uncle. He's my dad's best friend, but he was with Neil Diamond, played percussion for Neil Diamond. So I knew the band, I knew my uncle. So then skipping all the way, you know, back into my 20s, Neil Diamond came to Birmingham on tour. He came to England on tour. And Vince Charles, who was also the percussionist for Neil Diamond, was there, and I'd known him. And we just hit it off. And he was like, come to America. And I was like, here goes cracking the meter again. I had to crack the meter just so I could buy some clothes. So he sent me a ticket, and that was it. Me and my daughter were off. Shut the door to the maisonette, left a note for the milkman, and I was gone. Out the door. Didn't have to ask me twice.
So you've described a pretty bleak life so far. What was the transformation like? Because I know, I went to the States in my early 20s.
Yeah. You know what? It was wild because I was cashing my social book on the Monday, and on Wednesday night, August 15th, I was standing in a 4-bedroom, 2-car garage house with a swimming pool in the backyard. I'm like, how the flip does this happen? Like, oh my God, I'm living, you know? And it was so funny because back in those days, everybody wanted like the wall unit, a wall unit in your living room, and you were livid, right? You were posh. And this guy, Vince, had a wall unit, and I was just like, as if the pool wasn't enough. The wall unit, I was like, oh, I can't wait to tell everyone I've got a wall unit, you know. So I was like, I was all excited. And then it was massive. It was a massive transformation. You know, like we went on the road. I went touring with him. We went on the road, you know, Madison Square Garden, like big, massive concerts. I mean, Neil Diamond is the man. He still is, you know, and he definitely was. He had a second wind back then, so he was huge. So yeah, I went from, you know, jumping on the bus and you know, trying to squeeze on the bus and not pay my bus fare, to being on private planes and bodyguards and massive venues. You know, it's like, it was nuts, you know, like and I always say, I'm just a girl from Chelmsley Wood. How the hell did this happen? But it was fun. It was fun, you know. It was a lot of fun. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that movie, Almost Famous. If you ever see that movie, it's really good, and it's like that. There's so many moving parts, and you know, you got the band, and you got you know, you just got everything going on. The roadies, the stage, you're going flying to the next town, and just things like that. It was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Pretty cool for a 22-year-old kid.
What did they make of your Birmingham accent?
You froze on me. Say that again.
What did they make of your Birmingham accent?
Oh God, you know, it was funny because the first time I went to the grocery store, they were like, you know, would you like paper or plastic? And I was like, oh, I'll just take a carrier bag. And they were like, a what? And I was like, I'll take a carrier bag. Like, no one could understand me. I had to point at things for a while, but yeah, people liked my accent. They loved it. They thought it was funny. Yeah, so it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. And LA's so mixed anyway. You've got a bit of everything over here. So you know, but yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
So were things pretty stable for the rest of your 20s?
Not really, no. I mean, I got here, and of course my dad lives here, so he lives down the street. So, you know, I was trying to form a bond with my dad, and that did not go well. That was an absolute disaster. And you know, he's trying to insert himself as this father figure. It's like, well, I've got a kid and now I'm married. Like, what do you want? You know, what can I possibly do? You know, nothing was ever good enough. He always looked at me like, it's chickens coming home to roost. You know, I think he thought, well, I left this one behind 6,000 miles away, and now she's here married to a guy that I know, you know? So I don't think he liked that very much. And you know, my dad's very accomplished in his own right, but he just he was not happy that I was here. But you know, like, look, like I said, we were touring. I didn't have to worry about money and things like that. We had plenty of money. I didn't have to steal cheese and buy deodorant, or steal deodorant and buy cheese. I could buy everything at the same time, and you know, I was living, you know, like it was for the first time, I think, that I could actually breathe a little bit, you know, and just kind of like just try to figure out life. But it wasn't too long into being here that I realized that Vince was unfortunately an alcoholic. So that was really hard. I'm a devout teetotal, so I've never drank, never smoked, never done drugs. And he lived the life of a rock and roller. I mean, it comes with the territory, you know, it's part of the job. And unfortunately, his drinking was a major problem for us. I was 22, he's 44. We had a massive age gap. You know, it just didn't, he would become violent when he drank. And you know, I really battle with this when I talk about him, because it makes me sad because he's dead now. But he was a good guy. You know, he was a good man. He was a very talented man. He played music, the best music. He did the soundtracks for The Little Mermaid. Like, he's done, he was with Neil Diamond for almost 30 years. He was with Crosby, Stills and Nash, Fleetwood Mac. He recorded with Fleetwood Mac, Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass. Like, this guy was so incredibly talented, but he was an alcoholic. And that just ate him away, ate his life away, and eventually took his life. He died from it, I should say. And so that was a big thing. And he became violent. And I just think that the age gap, the lifestyle differences was just too much of a clash for us. We fought a lot. You know, he would put his hands on me and, you know, hit me and things like that. And, you know, and it was quite sad, really, that it all kind of went belly up. And yeah, that's how that went, you know. And I would watch him, would go, you know, he'd be on the stage playing in front of thousands of people, and he was just the best performer. Like, he was the best, you know, he really was, and he knew how to put on a show. And it was just so sad, you know, to know, you know, that he had this whole alcoholism going on behind the scenes. It was very sad, really sad.
Did you ever get to the bottom of where his demons came from?
You know what? I didn't. No, I didn't. We were both fighting our own demons. He was fighting alcoholism. I was fighting, you know, what was going on with me, you know, from my childhood. We're both in a battle for our lives, and then bringing that together, that energy together, was just too much. You know what I mean? Now that I'm older and I look back, and it's like, I did not have the maturity, the mental capacity to try to figure out him, because I was still stuck in that 10-year-old mindset, that 16-year-old mindset, that 18, 19-year-old mindset. You know what I mean? So I was still stuck there, while here trying to figure out a life and with a small child. So I just, you know, I just quite simply did not have the time to figure out what was going on with him. I just think, you know, look, again, he was 22 years older than me. It was drugs, sex and rock and roll. You know, he came up in a time of all of that, free love, all of that kind of thing. And that was just his lifestyle. And I just didn't fit into it, you know.
And how traumatic was the rejection from your father?
Horrible. My dad couldn't stand me. He still can't stand me. It was the worst, you know. And I also feel that rejection from my mother as well. I feel like my mother, every time she would look at me, I'm a reminder of the guy that didn't come back for her, because it was a one night. They literally had a one night stand. So she didn't even know him, you know. But the rejection from my dad was absolutely awful. He did not like me. I think he didn't like me because I would not do. You know, he tried to bully me, tried to muscle me. You can't be my dad. You were never around. You know, you had a one night stand with my mom. You didn't even know her. You know, you don't know me. You weren't there when I was born, you know, things like that. So he met me as an adult, you know. Well, actually, sorry, he met me when I was 10, but I was a damaged 10-year-old, you know. So we didn't stand a chance. And then when I came to America to live, I just think that he just was thinking, like, why are you here? You know, you're not supposed to be here. I think there were, as I was growing up, there were a lot of, she's not supposed to do, you know, fill in the blank type of thing, you know. And I was very aware of that. But yeah, the rejection from my dad was really horrible because it's, you know, you're supposed to have your dad, aren't you? You know, but he didn't want to get to know me as an adult. He didn't want to get to know the person that I am, you know. And funnily enough, we're a lot alike. But yeah, he just had no interest unless I was giving him money. He had no interest in me, you know. So yeah, nothing. He was very angry that I was a teenage mom, you know, things like that. But, you know, like, you know, he wasn't there to guide me, you know, you know, he wasn't there. So, you know, what does he expect, you know?
So did you have anyone to support you? Because it sounds like at home you've got trouble. You got trouble with your father and your mother. Did you have anyone?
No, like adult, you know, my friends, me and my best mate Jane at the time. But no, I didn't have anyone. I just navigated life on my own, really. I just realized, okay, you know, this is it. It's me against the world. And I'm just going to have to go out there and do what I've got to do in order to survive. And when Vince gave me the opportunity, I knew I wouldn't live in Birmingham for the rest of my life. And I knew that there was something bigger out there for me. Like I legitimately knew that. I always wanted to be a singer. I wanted to be a backup singer for Diana Ross. I wanted to be a Supreme, but no one told me that they broke up in the 60s. So it's like, you assholes. No one told me, you know. But I did. I wanted to be a singer. I wanted to do all these things, but I knew innately I had this. It sounds super cliche and cheesy, but I had a flame. I had a flicker of a flame. Where there was a flame, there was a hope, you know. So I knew that there was something bigger for me out there. I just had to go get it. I had a few roadblocks along the way. Of course, I had my daughter, you know, but when Vince offered me the opportunity to come to America, I jumped at the chance. I mean, when else was I going to get an offer like that? I could not refuse it, you know. And even when I got here and it didn't work out, I knew I had to stay. Like, this is where I was supposed to be. This is where I'm supposed to live and raise my daughter and raise myself, you know, because still I'm here on my own as well, you know what I mean? Because Vince and I broke up, so I was back to being a single mom.
How old were you when you guys broke up, and what caused the breakup?
I was 27, and just the alcohol, you know, just the fighting, all of that. I think we were just sick of each other. Yeah, so that's what happened. We broke up, and I had to go get a job. I'd never had a job in my life ever. So I went to the mall because I was like, well, where do I started making friends. And I thought, well, where do all my friends work? And it was like, okay, the mall. So I went and got a job at the mall. I got my first job at Nordstrom. And so I was there for a while, and just kind of, you know, I always say I got a job that led me to, you know, a better job, and then to a career that I have today. So, yeah, that's what I did. And honestly, it was just, I was blind. I didn't know how to drive. I rode a bike. I literally rode a pedal bike. So then I had to learn how to drive, but it was just like blindly going through, just navigating my way through life. Very young, didn't have the support of my dad. You know, got my first apartment, and you know, it wasn't paying the rent because typical, you know, we were like, oh, we'll double up next month. And I didn't realize that you can't double up next month over here. You got to pay the bills every month. So, you know, ran into a few hiccups along the way. It's been a struggle, but I got through it, and just kind of went to a better job, and that's how I got through. Just, you know, by the hair of my chin, really.
So what was your life like when you turned 30?
When I turned 30, by that point, I was working in Beverly Hills. I was working for an ad agency in Beverly Hills, the biggest ad agency out here. And life was good. I was living rent.
How did you get that job?
So, as I said, I went from a, you know, job to job to job. And I met, when I was at Nordstrom's, I met this lady and she and I became friends. Her husband owned the ad agency. He was a big wig. We did movie. He actually was the one that designed the poster for Jaws, that iconic poster. So it was him. His name's Tony Seiniger. So I worked for him, and he offered me a job. He was just like, I love your personality. Come work with me. Little did I know at the time he was in a lawsuit where he was getting done for sexual harassment and racial harassment. So I was I was needed. You know, my blackness was needed. I'm like, all right.